What happens when one of music's most genuine voices sits down for what should be a routine morning interview, only to realize the host has an agenda? In just 44 seconds, a seasoned news anchor would go from respected journalist to viral cautionary tale. This is the story of how Teddy Swims was pushed off Good Morning America, how the internet decided who the real villain was: the studio. Lights were blazing that morning as Teddy Swims stepped onto the Good Morning America set. He was there to promote his latest album, talk about his tour, and share the unlikely journey that had taken him from viral covers to sold-out arenas. The audience buzzed with excitement. Teddy had become a people's artist, raw, unpolished, real in an industry that often felt anything but. He wore his usual laid-back look, casual clothes, tattoos visible, an easy smile on his face. He wasn't performing a persona. He never did. Across from him sat George Stephanopoulos, notes in hand, flanked by Robin Roberts and Michael Strahan. The segment began smoothly enough. "Welcome to Good Morning America," George said, flashing a practiced smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Thanks for having me, man." "Excited to be here," Teddy replied, his Georgia warmth filling the room instantly. "So let's talk about your rise," George continued. "You started out doing covers online YouTube, right? Singing other people's songs in your car, your bedroom." He paused. "When did you decide to become a real artist?" The question landed hard. Robin's eyes widened. Michael shifted in his chair. Teddy's smile flickered, but only for a moment. "Well, George," Teddy said evenly, "I've always been a real artist. Those covers were me sharing my love for music. Each one came from the heart. Just because the songs already existed doesn't mean I wasn't being authentic." George waved it off. Sure, but covers are kind of like training wheels, right? Anyone can sing someone else's song. Writing your own, that's when you become legitimate." Robin jumped in quickly. "Teddy, your original music has resonated deeply. The vulnerability in your lyrics really connects with people." "Thank you, Robin," Teddy said, grateful. "I write from real experiences. Every song comes from my life." But George wasn't finished. He shuffled his notes and looked up with something resembling a smirk. "Let's address the elephant in the room: your appearance. The tattoos, the casual style, the whole vibe. Do you ever worry you're limiting your audience? That mainstream America might not take you seriously?" The studio went quiet. A producer could be heard urgently whispering into a headset. Michael's jaw tightened. Teddy inhaled slowly, his tone steady but firmer now. "George, this is who I am. I'm not trying to be anyone else. My tattoos tell my story. Every one of them means something. And the people who listen to my music appreciate that I'm real. I'm not wearing a costume, but image matters in this industry," George pressed, his voice turning condescending. "The great artists understood presentation. Don't you think you'd be more successful if you cleaned up a little?" "George," Robin interjected sharply, "what makes Teddy special is his authenticity." I'm just asking what viewers are thinking," George said defensively. "Are they?" Michael finally said, his tone unmistakable. "Because from what I've seen, people love Teddy exactly as he is." George ignored them. "Let's talk about your background," he continued. "You worked regular jobs before music? Fast food? Retail?" "I did," Teddy said, "and I'm proud of it." "So you come from a more humble background," George said, the implication clear. "Do you ever feel out of place now? Around artists who went to prestigious schools, who grew up in the industry? Does imposter syndrome ever kick in?" Something shifted in Teddy's expression. The warmth faded. "I've never felt like an imposter," he said. "My path was different, but it was real. I earned everything I have through hard work. I didn't need connections or a fancy school to teach me how to feel music. Defensive, George remarked with a small laugh, glancing at the camera. Looks like I touched a nerve. You're being disrespectful, Teddy said flatly. The audience murmured in agreement. George leaned forward. Disrespectful. I'm conducting an interview. If you can't handle tough questions, maybe you're not ready for this level of exposure. Tough questions. Teddy repeated, his voice rising just enough to cut. You've insulted me since I sat down. You questioned my legitimacy as an artist. You criticized how I look. And now you're trying to make me feel inferior because of where I come from. And in that moment, the interview stopped being an interview. It became a reckoning. Asterisk, that's not journalism, George, Teddy said evenly. That's just bullying wrapped in a nice desk and a suit. The audience exploded into applause. Robin nodded unmistakably. Michael didn't hide the faint smile tugging at his mouth. George's expression hardened. I think we need to remember who the guest is here and who the host is, he said coldly. I've been in this business for decades. I've interviewed presidents, heads of state, the most powerful people in the world. You're here because we gave you a platform, and there it is, Teddy replied, leaning back. That's what this is really about. You think you're above me. You think time on television gives you the right to look down on people. He leaned forward now, voice steady, deliberate. Those covers you dismissed. They connected with millions. Those regular jobs you tried to shame me for. They kept me grounded. They taught me more about real life than you've probably ever experienced inside your bubble. George's face flushed. How dare you? Do you have any idea who you're talking to? I do, Teddy said calmly. Someone who forgot what humility looks like. A murmur rolled through the audience. You sit there in a designer suit, convinced you're untouchable, Teddy continued. But you're not. You're just a guy with a microphone who's gotten too comfortable being mean. Robin tried to intervene. Let's all take a breath. No, George snapped, cutting her off. His eyes never left Teddy. This person comes onto our show, our prestigious show, and lectures me about humility. Someone who got famous singing karaoke on the internet thinks he can tell me how to do my job. Karaoke, Teddy repeated softly. Something shifted. You know what, George? He said. I came here with respect. I was excited to be on this show. I grew up watching Good Morning America. But you've made one thing clear: if you don't fit into your narrow idea of what's acceptable, you don't deserve respect. Michael spoke up, firm and supportive. For what it's worth, Teddy, a lot of us here respect your talent and what you stand for. Thank you, Michael, Teddy said, nodding, then turned back to George. But your guy here has other plans. Your guy. George sputtered. The disrespect is unbelievable. You want to talk about disrespect? Teddy stood now, his microphone still clipped. You invited me under the guise of a promotional interview. Instead, you spent the entire time trying to tear me down. For what? He continued. Because I don't look the way you think a star should. Because I didn't come from money or connections. Because I represent something real that makes you uncomfortable. The cameras kept rolling. Producers scrambled backstage, unsure whether to cut away or capture what was unfolding. Live television had become a tightrope. You're done, George snapped, rising from his chair. This interview is over. I agree, Teddy shot back. Because I'm not going to sit here and let you treat me like I'm beneath you. Security? George barked. The audience gasped. George, come on, Robin said, standing. That's not necessary. He's being hostile. George insisted. He's defending himself, Michael countered. From your attacks? Attacks. George's voice jumped. I asked legitimate questions. No, Robin said sharply, her composure finally cracking. You asked questions designed to humiliate him. We all heard it. The whole country heard it. Teddy unclipped his microphone. I'll see myself out. I don't need security to escort someone you clearly believe doesn't belong here. That's right, George snapped. Go. Run back to your internet fans who can't tell the difference between real talent and a viral moment. Teddy stopped. He turned back slowly. You know what the saddest part is, George? He said quietly. You used to be someone I admired. I watched you interview people with intelligence and grace. Somewhere along the way, you forgot that the people sitting across from you are human. He held George's gaze. You started using your power to make others feel small. And that's not strength. That's weakness. The studio fell silent. Robin's eyes welled with tears. Michael shook his head. The audience didn't move. George opened his mouth, then closed it. For once, the polished anchor had nothing to say. I hope you find your way back to who you used to be, Teddy added softly. Because this version of you isn't something to be proud of. And with that, Teddy turned and walked off the set. The cameras followed him past stunned crew members. Past audience members offering quiet nods of support, leaving behind a studio that had just watched control slip away in real time. He didn't storm off. No slammed doors, no theatrics. He simply walked away, head held high, dignity intact. Back at the anchor desk, chaos reigned. George argued with producers through his earpiece. Robin whispered urgently to Michael, clearly unsettled. The show cut to an unscheduled commercial break. 3 minutes early, when they returned, George's professional mask was back in place. But his eyes held something different, something fragile beneath the practiced calm. Robin took the lead. We're going in a different direction this morning, she said smoothly. And we want to thank Teddy Swims for stopping by. George added stiffly, indeed. We wish him well with his tour. But the damage had already been done. In just a few minutes of live television, something fundamental had shifted. A gifted artist had been disrespected, had stood his ground, and the nation had witnessed it all. The rest of the broadcast felt hollow. George's interviews were cautious, almost timid. Robin and Michael exchanged looks that said more than words could. The studio's energy never recovered. What began as a routine morning segment had crystallized a larger truth. The disconnect between traditional media gatekeepers and the new generation of artists. Building their careers outside the system, success, some believed was legitimate only if it followed a certain path, looked a certain way, came from certain circumstances. Teddy Swims had entered the studio as a guest promoting music. He left as a symbol of authenticity in an industry that often rewards the opposite, someone unbowed, unfiltered, and unafraid. And George Stephanopoulos, seasoned journalist, interviewer of presidents and world leaders, revealed something about himself that morning, despite decades of experience. He still saw the world through a lens of elitism and judgment. He had forgotten, or perhaps never learned, the simple principle of treating people with respect, regardless of their background, appearance, or path to success. The contrast couldn't have been clearer. On one side, a tattooed singer from Georgia, who had worked regular jobs and built his career one YouTube video at a time, speaking from the heart and refusing to pretend. On the other, a network anchor in an expensive suit, wielding his platform like a weapon, blind to value outside his narrow notion of worthiness. The studio audience saw it. The crew saw it. Robin and Michael saw it. And millions of viewers at home saw it. They witnessed who carried themselves with grace under pressure, and who revealed their true colors when challenged outside. Teddy stepped into the New York morning, the city noise washing over him. He checked his phone, already buzzing with messages of support from fans, fellow artists, and industry insiders. You handled that perfectly. You stood your ground. You didn't let him break you. Back in the studio, George sat alone during another commercial break, staring at his notes. Robin approached cautiously. "That got out of hand," she said softly. "He was disrespectful," George muttered. Eyes down. "George," Robin pressed gently, but firmly. "You went after him from the very first question. He was defending himself. I was doing my job." George insisted, but the conviction had waned. Michael joined, calm but firm. "Your job is to interview people, not tear them down. He came here excited to share his music, and you made him feel like he didn't belong." George finally looked up. For a flicker of a moment, something passed across his face: recognition. Maybe regret, but it vanished, replaced by defensiveness. "You're overreacting," he said. "This will blow over by tomorrow." Robin and Michael exchanged a look. They knew better. This wouldn't blow over. Moments like this defined careers, revealed character, and stayed in the public memory. The remaining hour of the show went on. But everyone knew the only story anyone would remember was Teddy Swims. Every other segment felt like filler, a placeholder until they could process what had happened in the control room. Producers were already managing the fallout. Phones lit up. Social media erupted. The clip went viral instantly. Sentiment overwhelmingly clear. Teddy Swims had won the court of public opinion before even leaving the studio. What George intended as a showcase of authority and viral soundbites had backfired spectacularly. Instead of looking like a tough journalist, he appeared out of touch, elitist, and small. Teddy didn't flinch. He left principled, strong, and unbroken. This was bigger than a disagreement between two people. It was a clash of values, a demonstration of authenticity versus entitlement, and a reminder that respect can never be demanded, must be earned. Asterisk, it wasn't just a TV moment. It was a cultural conversation distilled into minutes. Who gets to define success? Whether the old gatekeepers still hold sway, and how the democratization of media has shifted the rules. It was authenticity versus polish, substance versus style. Earning respect versus demanding it because of a title. Teddy Swims had embodied one side of that debate effortlessly. He didn't come looking for a fight. He came to share his music, his story, and his gratitude for fans. But when challenged, when dismissed, when told explicitly and implicitly that he wasn't good enough, he responded with truth. Not aggression. George, knowingly or not, had represented the other side, the establishment. The old guard insisting there's a right way to succeed and anyone outside that mold is less than. That authenticity is fine, but only if it fits the narrow definitions of acceptability. That tattoos, casual clothes, and working-class backgrounds are things to conceal rather than celebrate live on national television. With millions watching, one approach resonated. The other alienated. The verdict was decisive. Teddy stood for something real. George represented something increasingly outdated, disconnected, and judgmental. As the show wrapped and the crew broke down the set, the air felt heavy. Conversations were whispered. Some avoided George entirely, others shot him looks ranging from disappointment to barely contained frustration. This wasn't another day at the office. This was a moment that would be replayed, analyzed, remembered. George gathered his notes and left silently, skipping his usual rounds of goodbyes. Robin and Michael huddled with producers. Serious faces discussing how to handle the inevitable questions. Outside, Teddy stood on the sidewalk with his team. His manager looked concerned. That was intense. "You okay?" Teddy nodded, smiling not smugly or bitterly, but genuinely. "Yeah, I'm good. I just couldn't let him talk to me like that. I couldn't pretend it was okay." "Everyone's on your side," his publicist said, checking her buzzing phone. "The response is incredible. You handled it perfectly. I wasn't trying to win anything, Teddy said quietly. I just wanted respect. Basic human respect. And that's what it had come down to. One person asking to be treated with dignity. Another revealing that they valued some people more than others based on superficial judgments. The city around them carried on, unaware of the drama that had just unfolded inside the studio. But online, the conversation had just begun. Clips circulated. Think pieces appeared. Debates erupted in comment sections and offices alike. Good Morning America had handed the public a moment they wouldn't forget, just not the one producers had planned. A clear lesson in what happens when authenticity collides with elitism. When someone refuses to be diminished. Teddy Swims walked into that studio as a successful artist. He walked out as something more, a voice for everyone who's ever been told they weren't good enough. Who didn't look right, didn't come from the right place, or didn't follow the right path. For anyone dismissed by authority figures who confused their position with superiority. George Stephanopoulos began the morning as a respected journalist. By the end, he had become an example of everything audiences were weary of: condescension, judgment, and the inability to see value outside narrow definitions of success. Neither man intended for it to happen this way. But in 44 seconds of raw exchange, when civility collapsed and true feelings emerged, both revealed exactly who they were and America was watching.